Lesson number 4 is going to focus mainly on layer maps. Now we'll get into additional string settings and something called transform world, but mostly we'll be focusing on layer map color control and layer map size. So I've got a new comp called form layer maps, a solid with form applied to it and a camera, just like usual. Now I'm going to go into the base form and set the base form to box strings. I'll set the strings in Y to 2 and the strings in Z to 4. Now if I go into the string settings here, I've got taper size that I can set, and I can have this taper a couple different ways, which look just slightly different, but I'll leave this set to smooth so I can taper the edges of my strings. Next I'll set my size to 1800 to make this fairly large in the X, and we'll set the Y to 40, and we'll leave the Z size, well, we'll just leave that alone. Now, next what I'm going to do is go to disperse and twist and set my twist to a value of 10. Now remember, any rotation changes that I would make in the base form settings are going to be calculated before any twist or distortion that would happen in the fractal field. So remember, this base form rotation is often going to work a little bit differently than you might expect if you reach for a rotation control. If we would like this entire shape to rotate as is, what we can do is jump down to the transform world settings. This will rotate everything in our scene, including fractal field distortion, twist, dispersed, and the base form. It's a handy thing to be able to reach for to angle this thing exactly the way you would like. Next, I'm going to go to the string settings and adjust the size random. Now, if I turn this up to something like 10, we're going to see that each individual string is going to have its own size. It's not a per particle kind of thing. This is each individual string having its own thickness. Next, I'm going to add some color to our strings by using the layer maps function in form, rather than the quick maps like we've done before. So if I twirl this open, we'll see that we have a control over color and alpha, and we can specify a layer to use as our color and alpha. So if I drop a color map composition in here, which is simply just a JPEG, and I put a little bit of rotation on it, if I turn that off and go to my form settings, I'll define that layer to be used as my color map. Now, because this color map layer is just a standard After Effects layer which has 2 dimensions, in my form settings I'm going to need to specify which 2 dimensions I would like the 2 dimensions of this color map to be applied to, because form exists in 3 dimensions. So I can have those colors applied to the X and Y axes, or the X and Z, etc., etc. These down here, X, Y, and time Z, and Z plus time, are a little more advanced, and that's not something for an introduction to form. But you can visit the Trapcode website and read up on those. I'm going to use X and Z. And if I play through this, we'll see a little bit of color variation going on because I've got that color map rotating over here. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of glow to this by changing the particle type to a glow sphere. Remember, these strings are made up of particles, so if I change the particle type, we're going to see a change in how this string looks. Now I'm going to make this sort of undulate over time. I'm going to lessen this Y rotation to -10, and I'm going to set this X rotation back to 0. I'll set a keyframe for the X rotation, and then over the course of the composition, I'm going to have this rotate 1 full revolution. And what we're going to see if I play this, because the base form is before the twist, we get a nice undulating sort of look like this. Now, because I've changed this to a glow sphere, these are looking a little bit thicker than I'd like. So I'm going to reduce this size random to reduce the maximum size of the string. So I'm going to bring this down to 5, so they're not as thick. Now I'm going to control their size with a layer map. I've got a size map already made up, which is just a layer that does this with a little bit of mask work. what we're going to do is map this luminance to the size of the particles that make up the strings. So again, I just need this to be in the comp. I don't need it to be on. And I'll click on the form to bring up my effect controls. And we'll go into the layer maps here. Now, I'm going to open up this size setting here, go into the layer, and select the size map. And what I want to do, again, is specify which two axes I would like this two-dimensional layer to be applied to in 3 dimensions. I'm going to select X and Y. And what we're going to see is that this is going to transition on, kind of like that. And then this rotation will continue to rotate over time.